tell me, you've been campaigning for the last 2 years. What is going on? Give us a little bit idea.
It's been exciting. I went home back to Sierra Leone exactly 2 years ago. I quit my UN position and went home to begin to engage in politics. It's been an interesting journey, very challenging. To show you how challenging it is, 48 hours after I arrived in Sierra Leone, I went to my party office, the political party, then the SLPP that I was affiliated with. And the way they welcomed me was to put over 200 thugs in the office that were spitting at me and abusing me that I will not enter the party office. Really? That's what one of my major opponents organized. But of course, thank God I stood firm. Eventually they let me in. But that's after raining me with spittle and abuses. My mother was with me that day. But it was good because I called it, in a sense, I say it was good, because it was baptism by fire. I woke up suddenly to realize that African politics is a contact sport and it's very tough. So I quickly learned how to take the blows and the misinformation and the abuses. And since then it's been exciting because I've campaigned very hard. I've gone around the country to the slums, to the poor neighborhoods. I've also, in fact, been more inspired why I should be on this quest for bringing social justice and change and economic development to my people and enlightenment. And now, as I talk to you, I have just recently, this week itself, on the 5th of September, joined a new party. I've left the Sierra Leone People's Party to now be in a new movement with some like-minded people, converting a global movement I had created, the KKY movement, now into a new political force. We have just received our interim provisional certificate to function as a political party, and in a few weeks we expect the final, very final certificate to be a fully fledged new force for change in our country, and everybody is excited.
So, sir, tell the Sierra Leoneans, why should they elect you as their president?
Well, we have a lot of problems. We need change in our country. 56 years after independence, we've experimented with all kinds of political systems. We're still at the bottom of the heap, amongst the lowest human development index. Change must come. The youth are demanding it. The high unemployment rate statistics I showed you, the large number of school dropouts, the large number of college students who graduate and wait 3 years, still no jobs. They will demand more, and I worry about that. So we need change, we need new thinking. As I said, common sense has a limit. Now you need technocratic sense, yeah, that understands intersectoral linkages of public policies. You need leaders who themselves come with a high degree of integrity to really genuinely fight corruption. Corruption is one of the biggest cancers in the nation. It's not just the financial corruption. It is the way institutions are destroyed, institutions that are supposed to, in fact, ensure good governance. You need checks and balances. You need to reduce the leakages. We lose millions of dollars just on government procurement. We lose millions of dollars just because people simply sit there and devise systems to steal. What they steal, I say to people, it's a zero-sum game. What they steal out of the system is not available to build the schools, the hospitals, to train the kids and give them skills, to give them the market women financing so that they can grow their businesses. So you need new people with integrity, with courage and the audacity to be ambitious for their nation. And I say to them, country first. You need those of us who will put our nation and our people first, not their pockets. And so you need new thinking, a new generation of leaders. I pray that I have the opportunity, but I've also helped them to understand that that's not the end of it. Because people believe today it's only through politics that you can have social mobility, upward economic mobility in society. No. But politics is important because the leadership can set the pace, can create a new trajectory of growth and good governance. that we need badly. That's why I'm making this sacrifice. And I tell you, it's a sacrifice. Politics in Africa is hard.
Yes.
It's very hard. But I feel honored that indeed I have the privilege at my age to say, fine, I volunteer to see if I can take on that hard job. And I do pray that the Almighty gives me the grace and everything I need to succeed and deliver for my people.
So, medical facilities is still a problem in your country. There's still lack of maternity, clean maternities for women to deliver babies, and not enough hospitals for even the poor people to get to. The ones that do have money, they go outside the country. So, meanwhile, the rest of the population, there's no medical doctors, no facilities. If elected, sir, do you have any plan regarding improving your medical facility situation?
After education, of course, healthcare as part of the social sector is crucial. Ebola shocked us because our medical facility simply collapsed. Now, let me tell you what was also shocking with the flood. 2014 was Ebola. Millions came into our country. In fact, billions came into the sub-region. Some estimate that maybe over $3 billion came into our sub-region. A lot of it into those 3 countries to deal with capability building in the health sector. But what we saw again was the fragility of our health sector. The bodies that were discovered were laid naked, at the morgue. I remember going there. And so people are beginning to debate, where were the ambulances? Where was the medical, the rapid response teams? Right. We thought we had many more morgues, knowing that we lost several thousand people during Ebola. Wow, we didn't build morgues with all the resources that came in. So there are all of these questions, and I've told people in the interviews I've done on site during the disaster, that look, when you have problems like these or emergencies, it's just a time to step back and reflect. Are we responding well enough? Did we invest well in the health sector, even with Ebola, even our development partners, to really go back in to say, look, there's still gaps. How do we fill it? I know for sure that there is a comprehensive plan, and I don't want to reinvent the wheel. Donors invested a lot of money in looking at our health sector. Again, let me give credit. We were able to overcome Ebola, so it means some of the investments worked. But again, everything now is about speed and scale of sector reform, speed and scale of capability building within the health sector. We still need a large number of nurses. I think thousands of nurses we need. We still need hundreds of doctors.
So, education.
Yeah. So for me, one top priority will be, my dream would be within the first 3 to 5 years, can I build at least 2 state-of-the-art health facilities. One in the capital, because we have a huge population density there in the capital, maybe 1 million to 2 million people out of the 7, but also strategically located state-of-the-art medical facilities in the inner part of the countries that can handle emergencies like this, but more importantly, to lower the cost of access to healthcare. We have to lower the cost as well. So apart from better facilities, the cost also is an issue. I mean, we say we have free healthcare. We say we have free healthcare in Sierra Leone, but I can tell you, I know people pay for a lot already there. I mean, I don't want to start to list them now here. Sometimes in some locations, you even have to facilitate the entry of your name to get access to that facility. But that's a different question. That has to do with governance and what happens with the free drugs that are given to the hospitals so that poor people can access it. We talked about education before, unemployment, now health. This is why when people tell me that Yumkella is ambitious, I say I'm not ambitious enough. All the problems are so huge, they're so connected,
right,
that when you delay in any one single area, you disrupt the rest. So people cannot be complacent. In my country, ambition is a bad word. And I say everywhere I have known in the world that has advanced, it's about ambition. Ambition means that you don't settle for less. Over-ambition is bad. Arrogance is bad. But I tell you, ambition is damn good. Our kids, our leadership has to be super ambitious because the problems are huge. Unemployment is too big. Healthcare is not good enough. Education has literally collapsed in the country. You see what I mean? The economy itself has shrunk. Yeah. The revenue base of the government does not exist. So we are back to aid dependence. You know, back to aid dependence. A country that before Ebola in 2013, 2014 was growing at double digits. Yeah. Now we are back to aid dependency. We can't even pay salaries on time. So you know, sometimes it's 3-4 months before some institutions are paid. So the problems are so many that when you slack off, you're just postponing the problem down the road and you invite a crisis.
But sir, that gets me to unemployment. You still have very high unemployment within the country. If elected, what would you do different?
Wow, there's so much to do, I tell you, and the problem is very serious. I have spent the last 3 months going around the country doing what is new for them. Yeah, public lectures. You know, I started it 2 years ago. I intensified this year. Going around the country doing public lectures, and I chose education as the first major theme. And I get, in one instant, over 1,000 students. In another instant, just 10 days ago, in the eastern province out of our country, yeah, where Ebola started. Yeah, I went there. Over 2,000 students showed up. 2,000 kids. Some of them have school dropouts to listen to me. So what am I saying? Number one is education. The quality of education has to improve. We have kids graduating with no skills. Just basic education, but no skills.
But still, they don't have jobs, though.
They don't have.
Those of them
So first of all, it's skills formation. Yeah, and I also had the opportunity to address the heads of vocational institutions. So skills formation, especially vocational and technical training, is crucial. Second is growing the economy. If they are educated and there are no jobs because the economy is stalled and stagnant, they can't have jobs. So again, growing the economy, meaning supporting the private sector, aggressively supporting the private sector to expand their businesses. Third, helping these young men and women themselves become entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship is crucial. In my country and a number of African countries, people still believe that the government has to provide the jobs. It's limited. So what we also have in my country is bloated bureaucracies. We have all kinds of agencies proliferated across the country. We can't even pay salaries on time, yet we're creating more and more agencies. So having these kids also have basic entrepreneurial skills, having financial instruments that will provide necessary finance if people want to do startups or in fact expand existing businesses. Right. There's a whole menu of interventions we have to do. Otherwise, I tell you, the youth bulge in Sierra Leone, but across Africa, is going to be a menace. Africa's population, I always say this in every interview I do around the world, you're going to have about what? 1.4, 1.5 billion by 2030 and 2.2 billion Africans by 2050. You know, that's a lot of people. We're adding another billion soon. So this is an issue that is for all of Africa, right, but particularly serious. Some countries' populations will double in the next 30, 35 years. So economic growth has to be ramped up. So a lot of it has to do with the economy. You need a thriving, growing economy to do everything else I said on the education side. You need a thriving, growing economy to have the revenues to create special financial instruments to support small businesses or support startups. So this is a huge problem, but we're endowed with significant natural resources. Yeah. So you go back to natural capital management. How are we managing our natural resources? The diamonds, the gold, the titanium, the iron ore, and everything else we have, and of course the oil and gas we've discovered as well. How do we manage that? To invest in rapid growth and wealth creation, job creation as well, but at the same time, save for the rainy day. Very crucial. Yes. And again, this is why I say you don't just need common sense in African governance anymore. You need technocratic approaches. Right. These things I say to people, there is a limit to common sense, for God's sake. There's a limit to common sense. The kind of problems we face now, the magnitude of the problems, and the speed and scale of the solutions we need requires more than common sense. You can't go in there and say, I'll guess my way through solutions. No. Before we go in, we should have a program. Every candidate, very clear, articulated programs, and the knowledge about how you implement, how you bring new knowledge. Climate change, for example, climate science. How do you yourself as a leader fully appreciate and understand in a vulnerable country like Sierra Leone, the relationship between climate change and agricultural productivity, climate change and access to clean water, climate change and economic growth, and climate resilience, all of those issues. It is not just common sense anymore. The leadership has to be enlightened and aware that in such a country that is at risk, and climate change is the biggest risk multiplier you can think about. And so building the necessary institutions and infrastructure to drive change and growth in our nation is going to be crucial. Common sense is not enough.
Yes, sir. By you leaving the traditional party, aren't you promoting the idea of, they say that we diasporans, that we don't like to work with people at home. So are you, by leaving and starting up something new, are you not confirming that, would I say, stereotype they put on diasporans?
Well, there is always,
even though diasporans bring new ideas, which they don't go with.
Yes, but there's always the risk of multiple interpretations, a lot of them negative. I went back to my father's party. My father was one of the founding members, amongst many notable men who established that party back in 1951. My family has been in that party for a long time. But the party we have today is nowhere near what the forefathers had in mind. One of inclusiveness, respect for the rule of law. We have now a party where violence is the order of the day. Intimidation. They burnt my posters in the party offices. I told you about my welcome 2 days after I arrived.
Right.
And since then it's been rough and tumble. What I don't agree with in our domestic politics is that we allow people to engage in the worst corrupt practices, and when they acquire power or illegal wealth, we are asked then to succumb to them and say, you have to be patient, change will come. There's the urgency of now in my nation. We are very poor. We have suffered from Ebola, just a major landslide again just a few weeks ago. Yeah. Too many disasters. You have almost 60% youth unemployment rate. There is the urgency of now. And I see complacency. I see people wanting the status quo to continue. I just see people wanting the driver to change, but the engine remains the same. Right. So they fleece the system. The Auditor General normally in the past, 6 years, she sends out her reports about the level of corruption in our country, and people don't care. And we seem to be going around the world begging every day for aid, begging for help when we're sitting on massive wealth. Yeah. And yet we have few people who are becoming super, super rich. So there's the urgency of now that tells me you don't have to stay with the orthodoxy. Yeah. You got to move on. Yeah. And I think that's what we should encourage our kids, the younger generation, the future leaders of our nations to believe that you must demand more. You cannot just settle for the lowest common denominator. And as they say in my country, make we manage, make we bear. Oh, that's the tradition. Oh, it is because of, destiny. No, we are not destined to be poor. None of us are. I mean, some of us have lived in that country, finished our undergrad, and went out to venture in the world. And I see innovation in the 21st century everywhere. I see the drive for change in other African countries. Right. I want to do the same at home. We don't have to settle for less.
During the mudslide, you brought it up. I know you visited some of the areas. So what do you think, if elected, what would you do to prevent such, I know it's a natural catastrophe that happened, but again, there could be some things done. So what could you do as a president to eliminate some of the effects that resulted from this particular mudslide?
Well, first of all, the mudslide occurred about 5 minutes from my home. Freetown is very mountainous, so we live on different mountain peaks. We pray for those who lost their lives, over 1,000 people. That morning when it happened, it was a sad day for our country. The largest one-day death toll we've ever had in our history. Over 1,000 people perished. It was really sad. I went there by end of day because as a matter of discipline, I wanted the first responders to show up there, and I went there at the end of the day. In fact, apart from the president and government officials, I was the first politician to go there. As I said, it's in my neighborhood.
Yes.
Very sad. The disaster is a combination of factors. Climate change is a reality.
Yes.
Yeah? We have heavier rains than we've ever had before. We're one of the wettest countries in the world and in that sub-region of Africa. So there's a natural disaster dimension of it because you don't control the rain.
Right.
But it was also man-made.
How?
People should not have built in those areas, to be very honest. In the colonial times, the British actually planted trees in a lot of that mountain range. Second, they also prevented people from cutting the trees along those mountains. They made it a forest reserve because they had had a disaster there back in the 1940s, I think.
Really?
Yes. So, but again, our people, our whole city, in fact, people just do anything they like everywhere. So I think that, again, it's a sign of problems with governance sometimes, enforcing the rules, looking at the risk areas. So if you look, so it's a combination of a natural phenomenon, probably due to climate change. It is also man-made. People should not have been cutting the trees or living in those valleys where every year we have floods in those areas.
So I'm glad you brought that up because everybody has been talking about it. A lot of people in the diaspora, they've been talking about it. Why did you do that?
Well, the reality in my country is that after 56 years, we're still amongst the poorest of the poor, in spite of the fact that in the last 20 years, we discovered huge deposits of minerals, including oil and gas, and 7 million people. We have one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the world still. After 3 decades, we still have one of the highest infant mortality rates in the world, highest corruption amongst the top 10 most corrupt countries in the world. So all the indicators are negative. So my announcement, having the audacity to challenge the status quo and say, look, things have to be different. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we had that created those problems. That's the whole Einstein quotation.
Right.
Yeah, I'm modifying it. That you can solve a problem if you use the same thinking that created the problem. So what I have done now is to demonstrate in a very clear way to our young generation and the political establishment at home that I have listened well to the youth who leave college and 3 years they have no jobs, to the women who sell every day in the market and they come home, they can't feed a family, to the over 30,000 teachers that are not on payroll in our country, that you can do something different. You can create a coalition of progressives that really want to see change in their country, galvanize them, and then demand changes in the country, accountability, end of corruption, but also show vision for growth and development and job creation and wealth creation for the youth. So my announcement has just made people so happy. I'm fresh in politics, yeah? I'm not part of the old ilk that caused the problems in the nation.